Good evening. It's 7 o'clock and we're ready to rock, so we're going to start the meeting. Welcome to the June Beaches Watch monthly meeting. We're very excited to have Representative Michael here to give us an update of the good, the bad, and ugly of the legislative session. But before she gives her presentation, I have a few announcements to make. I'm Maria Mark, President of Beaches Watch and your host for this evening. Just a couple of announcements here. So as you know, we always videotape our meetings, so please share it with your friends and neighbors. Tomorrow it will be uploaded to our website as well as our YouTube channel. We're a membership-based organization, so we would love for you to think about joining or renewing your membership. It's $15 for an individual, $20 for family, $5 for students. It helps support our Give Back Award, our Fran Sharp Scholarship Award, as well as programs like this in our candidate forum. So we'd love for you to join us or renew your membership. Go ahead and recognize elected officials. Tonight we have Jack's Beach City Council member Greg Sutton. We have Atlantic Beach City Commissioner Candace Kelly. And of course we have Representative Michael, House District 16. Did I overlook anyone? Or? Oh.
Jack's Beach Council member, Madam Lisa.
Thank you. Anyone else? I guess I took the sign before you signed it. Okay. So we have some of the cities have some important meetings coming up. Atlantic Beach is doing their charter review committee. They have their meeting coming up Wednesday, June 28th. This will be at 6 p.m. and it looks like they're doing these on the fourth Wednesdays of each month, and it will be in the chamber in Atlantic Beach. Jacksonville election results. So congratulate Mayor Donna Deegan, property appraiser Joyce Morgan, and our at-large city council, Group 1, Terrence Freeman, Group 2, Ron Salem, who is also the incoming city council president, I believe, Group 3, Nick Howland, Group 4, Matt Carlucci, and Group 5, Chris Miller. So congratulations to all of the winners. So as you may or may not know, the Jacksonville Beach height increase was defeated by 82% of the Jacksonville Beach voters. So I would say that was spoken loud and clear. We want to congratulate our 2023 Fran Sharp Memorial Scholarship recipient, Tracy Schrock. Her essay, she wrote a really interesting essay on trying to make the cities more connected and bikeable, pedestrian friendly, which I think we all are really working on making that a priority as we move forward with the visioning of the cities. The Latham Plaza redesign workshops, there's a couple scheduled coming up tomorrow, June 15th at 5:30, Tuesday, June 27th at 5:30, and that will be in the Jacks Beach City Council chambers. Let's see, our next meeting, of course, is following the 4th of July. It's always a very busy time here at the beach, so we like to have our different police chiefs come in to give us a report on the 4th of July and what happened. Hopefully nothing bad happened. It's been pretty quiet over the past few years. And they'll talk about just what's going on in our cities crime-wise, safety-wise, and how we can be better citizens and helping them do their job. That will be here at the library as well. Okay, so now we're ready to hear from Representative Michael. Again, she's going to be bringing us up to date on what happened in the legislative session.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you to all the officers that are here. And thank you to all of you all showing up. And I'm grateful to be here. It was an incredible session, I can say, because we got a lot done within 60 days. And they have deemed it, it's been called the most say, established, accomplished legislative session in history, because we got a lot of bills passed. We got a lot of bills that can you all hear me okay? Okay, let me put it up close. That's better? Yeah, because I saw a couple of you all leaning in. Nothing worse than somebody talking and you can't hear them. But we got a lot done during our session, and it was very, it's good to be able to walk and work across the aisles and to work with people that you may start off on different sides, and some things you will not agree on, but it's great when you can agree on most of what our communities are, I would say, challenged with. Because we're all, of course, as you all know, you all elect us as your representatives according to the concerns that you have for the district and the people that you think are the best ones that will represent you for the district. And so I thank you for that. And I thank my staff for being here, Logan and Destiny is in the back. There you go. When you all came in, you probably, if you didn't notice, these cards are on the table. And I asked our staff to break these and put them out on the table. They're comments and priority cards, legislative priority cards. And the reason I asked for that is this is how we come up with our bills. Because when you all tell me what you're concerned about, then we can have a conversation. We can have, you all are always welcome to come in. We're right there on 3rd and 3rd, 421 3rd Street, I believe is the correct address. So if you want to meet with me before I'm back into committee week, which starts in September, please see Destiny or Logan, and they can try and get you on my calendar. So I'd like to sit down. If I haven't talked to you, I would love to have time to do that. And I know we're pretty booked. So it's going fast. I just want to tell you a little bit more about myself. If there's any of you all, is there anybody here that hasn't heard me speak before? Oh, wow. Great, thank you for coming. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. That's my husband, Bobby. He is retired Navy. Do we have any veterans in the house? Thank you so much for your service. We appreciate you all, and I'm honored that part of my district that I represent is the military, is the naval base, Mayport Naval Base, and of course Giants Beach, Neptune, Atlantic, and parts of East Arlington. So thank you so much for having me here. For me, I can tell you I'm not a typical politician. It wasn't something that I aspired to be. I never thought about it. I traveled with this guy all around the nation, raising our kids. And what really made me decide to run was that in 2007, we lost our 21-year-old son, Brandon, to a twice-deported person that was in our country illegally. And I knew that I had to fight just to stay alive, just to maintain my, to have something to make sense, something that I believe that God can use, some kind of way. And so Bobby and I immediately started traveling the nation. After you get over, I don't know if you ever get over the shock, but once I'm able to just get my mind together, and we have 2 other children, an older son and a younger daughter, we started traveling all around the nation and just warning about the dangers and finding out about so much that we didn't know. We went to the border, 3 different sectors of the border ourselves because we wanted to see what is really happening, because there's nothing like seeing for yourself. And there are things that I saw, we both saw, that we can't ever unsee. And so when I knew that the borders were going to be open and it was going to be a challenge, I really prayed and I believed that there was more work to be done. We still had a lot to do. I've been working with our governor since 2019, since he got in office, to help push through the ban on sanctuary cities, trying to protect other parents because I didn't want you all to become me. You understand? So, I decided, after prayer, I had to really, really pray about this, that I was going to run for office, and this is the catalyst. Tragedy is the catalyst that really pushed me in that direction. First time running, and won. And I'm so grateful for that. And if any of you all voted for me, thank you. If you didn't vote for me, I'm still honored to represent you. I'm still your representative. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here because I can tell you that I went in to Tallahassee fighting to make sure that I represented you all well. And if you would, if you don't mind filling out these cards before you leave and just letting me know what is your priority, what is it that concerns you. And they're on that back table right there. And what would you like for me to take back to Tallahassee with me? Because this is how we come up with laws. Because I'm all about weak people. I believe I'm a public servant, so I'm there to serve you all. So let's talk about, I want to talk about some of the bills that I dealt with, that I handled, and that we handled as legislators this past session. It was such a dynamic session. I'll tell you what, the House is really like a circus. There's a lot of fireworks, there's a lot going on, and then you go over to the Senate side, it's like the library. It's very quiet, and I'm like, wow, isn't that true, Destiny? I'm like, wow, the difference, the sanity over here. Then I go back over to the House, and it's everything. But we come together, and we try and do what makes sense for our state. So the good thing is that we agree on most things, regardless of what side we're on. And I'm one of those people, I believe, working together is the best way, wherever possible. So one of the bills that I dealt with, which was a very large bill, that was handed to me as a freshman. I couldn't believe it, shocked. But it was something I've been working on. It is the immigration bill. And so I brought some, we put this up here so that you all can better understand, because a lot of people, I hear things about the bill and I'm like, it's not true, we're not hunting people down. It's not true, we're not trying to take away people's livelihood. We're not trying to stop people from getting health care. But what the HB 1617, which is the SB Senate Bill 1718, what the immigration bill does is that we knew that we wanted to better protect Floridians. We wanted to make sure, because we have millions coming over the border, we know that we're going to be impacted. Florida, Jacksonville, all of Florida, of course, we have the threat not only of people coming across, but we have people not only walking across the border, flying in, but also coming in by marine land, coming in by boats. And so I was able and very fortunate to work with our team that we have at the House, our internal team, to work with the governor's team, to work with the Senate side, to give input in what we really need to better protect our state, our city, my district. And one of the things is that I wanted mandatory E-Verify. The reason I wanted to, and I knew that that was important, is because what we noticed when Bobby and I was at the border, and I'm trying to make sure I stay on time, just so if you can help me with that. One of the things that we noticed at the border was that there are a lot of incentives that draw people to come here illegally. Now, keep in mind that we do have ports of entry that are legal ports of entry that people can come through, and that we do have a legal way to come in. So what we saw when we were at the border ourselves is that I saw a lot of children and women that were being trafficked into our nation. We saw children that were coming across the border without their parents. There are hundreds of thousands of kids that are coming across the border. They will swallow them and find out they're not even related to the adult that is bringing them in. And as a mama, it's just something, who does that? That's not something that a mother would do. And that concerned me. We watched children, we know that children were being trafficked and children were being attacked, and as well as women, and it breaks your heart. So illegal immigration, it doesn't just hurt Americans, it hurts the other side as well, you know, and that is what I think a lot of people miss that. So we knew within the bill, the intent of my bill was to remove the incentives for coming into the nation illegally, but to come in legally. So I'm all for legal migration, but illegal immigration is a problem for our state, for our nation. So with our son, the person that killed him had been working somewhere, and on the day that he crashed into our son, he was going to buy paint. He didn't know that he couldn't turn at an intersection, he couldn't make a U-turn. There wasn't a light there, but he couldn't make a U-turn at this median. He didn't know the laws, he couldn't read our signs. And so I knew if we remove some of the incentives, which is, let's make sure that they're eligible to work, because we need to make sure Americans are able to get jobs and not having to compete with low wages, because actually that's not good either for the other side, because they're working really with very, very wages that's just not right. And then if you have somebody who has trafficked you in, you're beholden to do whatever they tell you to do to keep that job, and that bothers me. So that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we put inside of the bill, that we use mandatory verify, and that's for employers with 25 or more employees. And it's something we've been trying for years, they've been trying for years, could never get it passed. We got it passed. Another thing is that the hospitals, we want to be able to capture how much money are we spending treating people who are not here legally, so that we can get a gauge on that, because we have no idea. So when someone who is not here legally, when they go to the emergency services, emergency room, they are asked the question, are you a citizen? It does not stop up, they still get medical care. We can't turn them away from medical care. I mean, we're human beings, we have feelings, we know. But it does give us a gauge on how much money are we spending. So that was inside of the bill. The DNA database and collecting DNA does not happen with anyone, with everyone that's here that goes to the emergency room. It happens with those who are criminally held. So they're already in detainment of law enforcement, probably about to be turned over to ICE. And at that point, we collect DNA because we don't know who they are. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't recognize, is that they don't come with IDs and this is who I am. We don't know who they are, where they came from. And we don't know where they're going. And so that was inside of the bill as well. So it's just removing the incentives. And another thing that's inside of the bill is we will not recognize driver's licenses that are from out of state. And I'll tell you why that's so key. Is, like I was saying, the person that hit our son, and I found this to be redundant, Bobby and I did, and so many other parents that have endured what we have in other families, is that majority of the way that their loved one was killed was in a car wreck. When you have people who cannot read signs and they're driving around, that's a problem. And so the person that hit our son, he couldn't read the sign. He didn't know that he could make a U-turn right there. So that is all part that's inside of the bill. And I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to make sure that people understood that when they are questioned, when someone who is not here legally is questioned at the emergency room, not at the doctor's office, this doesn't happen at doctor's visits, this is at emergency care. We don't collect their personal information. They do not give us their names. We're not asking for that. We don't want the date of birth. That's not on there. We just want to know, are you legally here? And that gives us, again, an ability to collect data. And then another thing is, I didn't know that we were paying for people who were not here legally to go to law school. And that kind of blew my mind, because I'm like, Americans need help to go to law school. So that was also in the bill, to make sure that that's got to stop, because we've got to be able to secure our resources for our communities, for our children, for our nation. And that is a good way that we can do it. But it helps us to identify, even through the hospital cost, how much in millions are we actually, or billions are we actually paying? Because you can't fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So that explains, I think, pretty much the immigration bill. Now we're going to talk about bills that passed that you all are probably very interested in. I think it's affordable housing, SB 102. When you see the SB, the Senate bill, we had Senator Calhoun and Cabrillo in the House that represented this bill. And it pretty much tells you what the bill does up here, is that it invests $711 million in multiple programs to expand the availability of housing, because we know that we have a housing crisis. It provides our payment assistance and focused support for military communities, that was my thing. When I was in the House, I was constantly, we got to do more for the military. Being a military spouse myself, retired military spouse, it's just not enough resources. SB 170, which is a local ordinance, this bill requires counties and cities to produce a business impact estimate prior to passing an ordinance. Additionally, the bill imposes certain conditions on lawsuits brought by any party to challenge the legal validity of local ordinances as preempted by state law, arbitrary or unreasonable. And this really, the way that I believe this will benefit us, or this district, is that it helps to the impact that we encounter as a city for lawsuits that come across and that we see that happens. SB 1604 is land use. On all of these bills, when you see the SB, it's already come to the House. We've probably had something in there, the Senate took it out, or they changed it, or something happened, put something in that now made it an SB bill, a Senate bill. SB 1604 land use revises the planning periods that must be included in a comprehensive plan, requires local governments to determine the plan amendments are necessary to reflect a certain minimum planning period, requires, rather than encouraging a local government to comprehensively evaluate and update its comprehensive plan to reflect changes in local conditions.
How do you enforce that?
I'm sorry, we'll talk questions
Okay, fine.
after the presentation.
Yep. These are bills, those bills are not bills that I personally presented. Those are bills that went through the House. I knew that it would impact this area. So I made sure I talked about that, or I'm talking about it now. Well, this bill, SB 766, is one of my bills that I sponsored. And this is a school bus infraction detection system. And what this does, because we have so many, I'm so tired of hearing and seeing children being hit by people going around with school buses. And it's really preventable. So what this bill does is it puts a camera on the arm of the school bus, a stop school bus, that has the lights glowing, to actually capture the license plate. And it doesn't capture anything other than that of whoever's going around the school bus. And this is effective July 1st. It's been signed by the governor. The bill also requires that I make sure that a notice to the community and community education was inside of this bill. So it's not something that will just all of a sudden start and you all will never hear anything about it. You will know about it, it will be in the paper, you'll get something in writing saying that this bill is coming out, this is starting. And hopefully it'll save lives. And it's not that often we actually get to do bills that, or present bills that will save lives. And it was pretty much unanimously. I think I may have had maybe 2 or 3 that voted against it, but most people were like, yeah, we need to do something to protect our kids. One of the bills that I co-sponsored was HB 635, which is dental services for our veterans, and that was by Representative Manning and Senator Burgess. And it does create a veterans dental care grant program with the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs to provide oral health care to veterans who live in the state of Florida. And that is effective July 1st. I know I have another bill. These are bills that actually failed. I think you all like these. It's HB 833, vacation rentals. And I know I've spoken to probably all 3 of the mayors about this particular bill. I think 2 of them showed up in Tallahassee when we were going into the chamber. And I voted down on this bill. And it did not pass. It did fail, and that was by Representative Duggan and Senator Leo. And that was, it added a scope. It added a scope to the state preemptive of public lodging establishment and public food service establishments by preempting licenses, regulations, and revises the scope of the express state preemptive on vacation rentals to allow local jurisdictions to amend local regulations to be less restrictive or to comply with local registration requirements. Now, I know that vacation rentals is a big problem here. And so I'm glad that it didn't go through. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done on that, on that particular bill. And this is where, again, these come in handy because one of you all may have an idea that we can actually put towards any of these issues or something you think of, but particularly the vacation rentals, because I know of the violence that's been happening here in the beaches because of people on the weekends. So thank God that did not pass. And then, of course, HB 671, I don't want to stand in anybody's way. Can you all see over here? Okay. Residential building permits, and this was by Representative Esposito and the same senator. Revises provisions related to building permits for residential units and dwellings, requires reduced permit fees, revises time frames for approving or denying building permits, specifies when permit applications is deemed sufficient, incomplete. It requires the local governments, it would have required local government follow prescribed time frames unless local ordinances is more stringent. And then of course HJR 405 prohibited on open primaries. I think this was Representative Tremont, yeah. It proposes amendments to state constitution to provide that only qualified electors with same party affiliation as candidates for office may vote in primary elections for that office, provided that the candidate of that office may not be prohibited from disclosing party affiliation or qualify for office based on party affiliation to prohibit exclusionary nonpartisan elections. We had the HB 401 sovereign immunity that failed, and that was by Representative Beltram and Senator Bruce. And I just talked about this last night with the doctors. I went to a doctor's dinner. But it increases the sovereign immunity caps for damages against state and local government entities to $2,500,000 per person and $5,000 per incident. It would have allowed a division of state to settle a claim and pay the settled amount without the need for a claim bill. It would have eliminated any statute of limitations for filing a claim against a state or local government entity for sexual battery actions involving a victim who was younger than 16 years of age at the time of the incident. The doctors were very concerned that this is something that they actually wanted, but I think the reason why this may have failed is it just wasn't written all the way through. It thought all the way through. It wasn't strong enough. We recognize that they do need some type of immunity because everybody makes mistakes, but unless a bill, I know I killed a couple of my own bills. And the reason I did that is because when you look at them and you think about the support, one of the things you want to consider is how much support will this actually get in the House, and does this really make sense? Is it really a complete and solid bill? Will it really, do you think it's going to pass? Or do I need to work on it some more? Because we don't get it right all the time. Sometimes we have bills and it's like, I should have thought of this. And this is why we go back and forth for 60 days between the houses. HB 975, which was the solid waste management. I talked to some people from the beaches about this. Representative Holcomb and Senator Ngolia. The bill prevents municipalities or counties from prohibiting private entities from providing recycling or solid waste management services to commercial, industrial, or multifamily residential properties, including condominiums within the municipality or the county. So those are some of the bills I believe that really were significant for you all. I know there was a question on how would we enforce the bill. That is something that comes back to the community itself. It's going to be through your city council. It's going to be through your city management that would have to make decisions on how those bills will actually be enforced. That's not something that we want to do at the state level. We felt like that needed to come back. And for me, I believe that giving the communities the power to make their laws, give me an idea of a law, and actually being able to enforce the law when possible is probably the best thing to do. I don't believe in government being overreached and having our hands into everything. We do have laws that we have to make for public safety, but some of them, I think they can come back. Let's see. I think that was it. Okay. And then, of course, this is of course my staff. I wanted you all to see. I think we were in Tallahassee when we took the middle picture. It's Logan and Destiny who are both here with me. And I think we put pictures up here as well. But if you all have any questions, any concerns, okay, go ahead.
Hey, Representative Michael,
Thank you.
oh, sorry, everyone, hold on.
I can't say I have all the answers. I may not be able to answer it, but I'll try my best. Some questions I may have to note down.
Okay, sorry. That's okay. So we will have Q&A. I know you have a loop of just photos, but would it be easier for the audience if we had the bills that passed? If you have any specific questions about those bills, to actually see it on the screen, we could do that. Do you mind if we do that instead? Okay. The bills that passed. Yeah, there's a lot of reading, a lot of words on the screen, and a lot of reading, so so the first one else. Okay. All right. So our first question was.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you, Representative Michael. I'm Katie Hathaway, and was really grateful to meet with you before session started, and it was great to meet in your office. I appreciated that. I'm a local gun safety advocate, and I pay attention to legislative session. I traveled to Tallahassee. I testified in the Senate. I watched the Florida Channel. What wasn't touched on was the gun-related bills that were passed, and I'm concerned, and I know you voted for them, and I hope you can explain your reasoning first with permitless carry, eliminating the safeguard in place for decades to do a background check to do training for carrying loaded handguns in public. I'm very concerned about that. Second, the one that prohibits credit card companies from coding and tracking firearm sales and ammunitions. That's a really vital tool for law enforcement to trace information about purchases of guns, and also a vital tool to help prevent mass shootings whenever somebody's buying an obscene amount of ammunition. And then lastly, the bill in the House to lower the age to buy long guns and rifles to 18. That was put into place after the tragedy at Parkland. And it's very concerning to me because most of the school shooters are under the age of 21. And also 6 of the 9 deadliest mass shootings were by shooters under the age of 21. So that really concerns me. And I appreciate you talking about bringing the things back to local government. And I hope that you could fight our preemption law, which prohibits local entities from regulating sales or anything about firearms and ammunition at the local level. So those are my concerns. And guns are the leading
So we can refrain from clapping and all that, so we can have plenty of time for Q&A. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to me.
Oh, sure. You know, one of the things that I look at when it comes to lowering the age of being able to handle guns is that the problem I have, or the challenge I have, is that if you're old enough to serve your country, you should be old enough to purchase a gun, and that is what I really believe. And there still is training that will be required to purchase guns. One of the things that people were telling me is that they felt like there was no background check being done. However, background checks are still done when you go in to purchase a gun. That law, what we passed, does not change that. I do believe in background checks. That's just understanding the law and the language that's in the law. And as far as tracking the purchases of guns, I believe our understanding, or my understanding of tracking the actual purchases of guns is what information is actually being gathered. I'm concerned about, my concern was when you go to purchase a gun online, and people do purchase them online, how is that information being tracked? If you go and purchase them in person, there's a background check that's already being done. Of course, we can never overthink, I think, the human element that's involved in this, and that's people with mental illnesses. In my understanding, and the reason why I voted for this, so that you all understand, is that there's only one way to stop a person who is mentally not well or who has a vengeance out, I would say more of a vengeance out to hurt other people, and they have a gun, is you need a gun to stop them. You're not going to be able to stop them with a knife, you're not going to be able to stop them with anything else. You know, and I've had, of course, we came to my office and we talked about this, but I can tell you, in urban cities, which I was raised on the north side, more of what's happening on the streets with these guns is children killing other children. And we have more parents that are, and they can get any gun that you want. Believe me, you can get any gun that you want on the street. You don't have to go in the store and buy it. And a lot of people who are committing the crimes, they're not going in and they're not registered to go and buy a gun. You can get any automatic, semi-automatic on the street, anything you want. I've lived it. I've lived in those communities. People that look like me, you know, normally don't hear this coming from somebody like me, but it is the truth. And as far as a partner shooting, that's a tragedy, and that's something that I will never be able to really, my heart breaks. I'll never be able to really wrap my head around that kind of tragedy. Just going in and arming, focusing your gun at children, it's just senseless. But again, I do believe that gun control, I don't think that it is the government's job to actually do that. I believe that we have to know we have evil people among us. And when someone comes into your house, I believe that you should have a right to protect your family. 100%. Yes.
Rep. Michael, thank you for coming out tonight. I have a question for you about HB 1645. For those who don't know, HB 1645 took control of Gainesville utility, and that was owned by the city of Gainesville, and put it under state control. And the rationale that was given by the author of that was that it was because the utility went beyond the city limits of Gainesville. Well, out here in the district, we've got Beaches Energy, which extends beyond the borders of Jax Beach. We got JDA, which extends beyond the borders of Jacksonville. So that same rationale can be applied to our utilities out here, which are providing great service and good rates for us. So if someone tries to put forward a similar bill regarding Beaches Energy, regarding JDA, would you be committed to blocking that bill either here at the local delegation level or down in Tallahassee?
And that's where I need to hear from you all. If you all want to maintain control of your energy, then yes, I'll stand with what you want. When it's something outside of my district and there's a bill that comes through like that, or specific for Gainesville, did that actually pass? No.
It's not good with that.
It's on the governor's desk, but he hasn't signed it.
Not yet.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's going to pass because I remember the argument in the House was that this is a local issue and it needs to remain local. And so I don't know if that's going to pass. I got a feeling it may not pass. Personally, that's what I feel. Just being in the House, being on the floor, and hearing the arguments going back and forth, we couldn't understand why are we hearing this? Because it is specific to a community. It would be the same thing like here. If somebody comes in and they put a bill forth that says, we want Beaches Energy to be in our control, I would wonder why you're doing that. Because I do believe if you all want to maintain control of your energy resources, that's why we're a representative. Just tell me. I'm hearing you all say that that's not what you would want, so of course I would fight that. And that's something that I would not support. And the same thing with JDA.
If I could just quickly follow up on that. So there was a lot of local outrage with this bill.
Yes.
They wanted to keep local control, but you did vote for it. So if you wanted this as something to keep a local issue, why did you support it on the floor? Just so we can understand.
Because I knew it was going to die. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, if I know that a bill is not going to make it, and it's not going to hurt to vote up on it, I want it to come back around because I believe that the bill will come back. I want it to come back around, and I want to hear the debates of what's going back and forth. But we can pretty much tell. When I have a bill and I know that I'm going to present a bill, I already know before I present that bill in the House, because you do your work. You work your bill. I already know if I have enough support for that bill to pass or not. So I'm just very honest. So that's really what it is. When you know it's not going to make it, I want to be able to hear the debate about it, because I know JDA, we're going to hear the same thing. We're going to have the same problem. We're going to have this argument again about these energy bills. And I want to hear both sides. I want to hear why do some think this is a good idea, why do some think it's not a good idea. I know what my constituents believe, but I'm going to vote for my constituents. But Gainesville is not my area, it's not my district, so it wasn't my focus.
Question? Back.
Yeah, Ms. Michael, thank you very much for coming. I know you're very busy, and we certainly appreciate that. We learned a bit about you, you learned a little bit about us. So I do have a question. Recently, the Florida legislature passed a bill authorizing taxpayer monies to be used to relocate undocumented immigrants. Most recently, the state has admitted to relocating undocumented immigrants from the states of Arizona, New Mexico to Sacramento, California. Did you vote to use Florida taxpayer monies for this bill? Secondly, do you approve of the use of Florida taxpayer monies to move undocumented immigrants from one state to another, even when these immigrants are not in the state of Florida? Is this a wise use of our taxpayer monies?
Okay. And that goes back to the immigration bill. And I did vote in favor for monies to be used because of the human safety aspect of this. We have to look at that. For me, I look at how many parents, how many families are impacted by illegal immigration. And we have to do something because at the federal level, nothing is being done. Nothing's being done at the federal level. So do we just ignore the danger? Do we just ignore? Right now we are having an influx. We're having an invasion really that's happening at the border. You may or may not see it, but it is happening. So what do? Do we just wait as a state and just wait for things to happen? Or do we take it upon ourselves to make sure we protect our state? My job is to make sure we're protected. I believe that we cannot rely on anything to change at the federal level, which is why we have to now handle some things at the state level, and that is why I voted for that. And some people are not going to agree with that, but I can tell you overall, with just different places of our community that I've spoken at, most people do. They agree that they want their families to be safe. When you talk to a parent whose child was raped repeatedly overnight by someone that was here, a gang that was just here working up the street from them and she knew nothing about them, that impacts you. When you talk to somebody like myself, this is personal for us, who's lost a child because you've got someone twice deported. A majority of the ones who come here have been deported previously, at least once, at least twice. And I think I've outlined before that it is not good, even for the people who are coming here. Not everybody coming here, a majority coming here, if you were to really look at numbers, accurate numbers, are not really running for the sake of safety. It's because somebody's telling them in America you can get this, you can get this, and get that, but they're not telling them the dangers of coming through the border. They're not telling them the risk that they're taking of coming across the desert. To watch children go through a sandstorm and the sand is going up your nose, going through your mouth. We're running for cover as adults. Or you watch children who are in the Rio Grande, and it's not a deep river. However, it's very fast. The current is very fast. And people are drowning. It is not healthy for either side. It's not good. It's not safe. And so, I think that answers your question. 5 minutes. Almost done.
So, Representative Michael, I have a question kind of following into that. So we all know that illegal immigrants are a problem, but they're leaving their countries for some reason. Otherwise, why would they leave? Why would they want to stay where they are? What, if anything, and this it may not be on the state level, this may be federal, it's a society thing, but what is being done or what's being discussed to find out from those countries that these people are fleeing from in hordes to find out what's going on there and why they don't want to stay in their countries or respective countries?
Well, one of the things I know just from going to the border ourselves, and I'm all for people who want a better life. I mean, absolutely. But we have a legal avenue to come. We do have some that are fleeing for their life, but what is happening right now is our borders are wide open. And so when you talk to other countries, they're not trying to hold people back into their countries. They're telling them to go. You know, and so if they're being encouraged from their country to leave, and they're being told, America, you're going to get all this free stuff, and they literally, a lot of times they do. We were at the airport and we watched people come through the airport. I've got to give my water up. We know as Americans, you give your water, you don't go through, is it TSA, with water. They're being given water. They have envelopes that have crisp new dollar bills, cell phones, brand new cell phones. They're given maps of how to evade Border Patrol, how to get through the border without being checked, without anybody knowing that you are coming. And so it's a very well orchestrated operation. And what a lot of people, another thing a lot of people don't know is that the cartel now has control over our borders. We don't have control over our own borders. And without borders, you're not a nation. People can say you are, but we are not one. We don't know who's coming across the border. You don't know who's living next door to you. You don't know who your children are going to school with, what homes they're coming from. When you don't have a checkpoint, when people know, when they have so much sophistication to where the cell phones actually tell them the route to go around the borders, that's a problem. And a lot of people don't know that it's just that sophisticated. The operation of this whole entire thing, and it's happening all over the nation. It's not a certain group of people. It's not people who are black or brown that's just coming. It's people coming from all over the world. And they're moving all through to these different nations. My job as your representative is to make sure I hear the concerns of safety and to make sure you're safe. Some people want to take that risk. You know, I've heard of New York, the New York mayor saying, you know, he wants people, he's encouraging people to allow people who are here illegally to live with them. That's not something I want to do because I don't even know who they are. And the reality is that you have a front door, you lock your door at night because you care about the people who are inside your home. We don't have that as a nation. Our borders are open. I've seen it, we've been there, and to answer your question, for people who really are coming here claiming asylum, they can still claim asylum. But the problem is that when you've got thousands rushing our borders and we only have maybe 50 Border Patrol agents, and you've got a large portion of the border that is wide open, we don't even have walls, we don't have nothing. They can't maintain that. And right now it's at levels that cannot be maintained. Right now it's like, we can't even keep up with it.
So how does using our tax dollars to send people from Arizona and Texas to Sacramento address any of the issues you just pointed out? It doesn't do anything to any of those.
Well, I can tell you we're also using tax dollars, but our resources are draining because our hospitals are having to treat, and we have to treat people. We're not going to turn them away. When our schools are overrun, when our police officers have their lives in danger because they're being shot at, they're having to handle the criminal element. When overall our resources, I mean, when our hotels are not, their bills being ran up, not being paid, there are billions of dollars that are already going out that people aren't thinking about. So do you want to spend that money to save your life?
How is this action addressing any of those issues? Specifically, by taking people from Texas to Sacramento, how does that address all of those problems?
Well, one thing I want to say is that people who are removed from Florida or prevented, they say that they want to come to whatever market vineyards or whatever. We're not a sanctuary state. That's something, and that's one thing to look at, is people who want to live in sanctuary jurisdictions. Those are sanctuary states. We're not.
But it still didn't do anything to stop any of those issues.
We're preventing people that could.
I know that I understand the
All right,
problem, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Okay, let's not, excuse me, if you're gonna have a sidebar, you can take it out there so we can finish the meeting. Are there any other questions from the audience?
I do have a question.
Well, let me have someone else ask.
This is more of a comment. I'm originally from California. I'm a council member in Jacksonville Beach. When it comes to immigration, I could say I'm somewhat of an expert. So my parents, American citizens, you asked a question about why are the illegals coming here. America offers so much dreams, so much opportunity. We have seen it in the past 100 years, 200 years. But right now, when I talk to my mom, my parents still live in that neighborhood that I grew up in, right? There's still immigrants that live in those neighborhoods. She talks to them on a daily basis. They tell her, and they tell their relatives, come to America. You will get a bunch of free stuff as soon as you cross the border. you can get so much free stuff. They'll send you wherever you want, and they'll give you phones, money, you name it. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but that is what's going on in the border. When it comes to the illegal guns that come across the border, some of them come to the illegal aliens that are crossing the border, and they're drug mules. You have all sorts of problems when it comes to immigration. Now, that's a whole different level. Federal level, both parties should address illegal immigration, but they choose not to. Now, our representative said we have to deal it more on the state level. Now, when it comes to shipping some of those immigrants to other states, I agree with it and I support it. Why? Because it'll prevent them from coming to Florida. That means if they come to Florida, we have to give them what? Pay for the hotels, pay for whatever health care they need. We already have enough problems as it is as residents, from local municipalities to the state level. So those are just my comments. I have so much to say, but I know we're on a time crunch.
Thank you.
But I do admire what you're doing. And we may not agree or disagree on this topic, but immigration is a very, very hard subject and topic. There's no easy solution. The only thing that can be done is try to minimize the crime levels and minimize the human trafficking. I've seen and I know people that have been sold, that have recovered. I've encountered relatives, not mine, friends of relatives, that they can't find their daughters and kids because they have been sold on the black market. That's something that is being dealt with.
But, yeah, that's not just illegal immigrants that's doing that. One more question, and then we're going to wrap up if you still have your question. If it's a question.
You also supported the abortion ban, but the premise, one of the premises of that is also to support women and children as they have more babies. And yet our Medicaid program is taking thousands of children off of the rolls with very little notice or confusing notice. What are you doing to address the fact that we're not covering or those children with chronic conditions and disabilities are being removed without notice from the Medicaid groups?
I'm not aware of that being a big problem. I'm hearing that we're having children that do not have medical coverage, but we do have kid care. And at the state level, we are working on providing more Medicaid or Medicare. I don't know which one works for the younger children.
Medicare is for adults.
Medicaid for children to make sure that they are covered. And there's a picture that's in here. I just saw it a moment ago. It's the mama when we were at the bill signing. I don't know if you can, that's me actually arguing about that very bill. Because abortion, for my culture, is eradicating my culture. When we're only 1/3 of the population and we're having more abortions than any other culture, any other race, that concerns me. And I'm on the other side of this, where I've had to counsel a lot of young women. You can get them to forgive, to know that God forgives them, but it's difficult for them, almost impossible, and this has been my history, for them to forgive themselves. And what do you do when you sit there and you cry with a mama that tells me, I can still hear my baby cry? When you cry with a mama who tells me, I know my child would have been 15 today. They never forget. That is my personal take. That's something that I take personally with me. Curtis's Law, that was another bill that I passed. The lady with the cap on, her son was killed at 16. He was drowned. He was held underwater. And they ruled his death an accidental drowning. And she fought for 20 years to have it ruled the correct way, that he was actually murdered. So that was one of the bills that I passed, saying that when dealing with law enforcement, they have to provide information. The law enforcement agencies or the detective working the case changes as it often does. This is me doing one of the interviews. So you may not agree with everything, that or some of the things that I made decisions on. However, I am available to hear your feedback. I stand by my convictions, but I also stand to make sure I represent you all because that's what I'm here for. There is a picture that we're getting to, and I don't even know what I was talking about on this video, but I was really into it, whatever it was. This is the mom whose son auditory services for deaf children. But there's a picture in here of a woman. These are canine for warriors. Help find people who have autism. This is a dental association that came in. That's Dr. Hart. I believe his office is here in this district. But one of these pictures, there's a mama. This was the NASA program. It's like I'm waiting on this one particular picture to show you and tell you her story. But there's a mama that whose husband was killed by, there she is, Nikki Jones, and that's one of her daughters. She's a mom. She's a widow whose husband was killed by a 3-time deported illegal in a car wreck, and she was left raising her 2 very young babies. That concerns me, and it hits my heart. And Nikki is actually fighting to try and save her home. So I'm trying to find a way to help her. Or we could do something.
Thank you. We are now at 8 o'clock, and I'd like to end the meeting. So if you just have a question, Representative Michael, I'm sure can talk to you about it after the meeting. I want to thank you, Representative Michael, for coming. Thank you, audience. That concludes our meeting for tonight. Don't forget about our July meeting. And one last request for those of you who are able physically, if you could help us stack the chairs